Happy St. Patrick's Day to attendees and to Greg, you as well.
Good afternoon.
We were just talking about St. Patrick's Day in Ireland, and it got us talking about trips. And it's fun to see where conversations go compared to where they start. So, again, my name is Jackie. I'll be walking through this Equipped Live with you for March. And at the end of the previous Equipped Live, I said the question we're going to start with for this one, I was really excited about it. I'm really interested in people, and I know other people are more interested in processes, but I like listening to people answers and people questions. So, Greg, we're going to start out with the question that I kind of teased about last time. And this was from Wayne Morgan and the Omni, OMC, and Quest teams when Wayne was still in that role. And they said, have you ever thought of what you would be doing or what other direction you may have taken if things would not have worked out in the mid to late 70s?
Well, and that was a very thought-provoking question. And where I landed was I probably would be in some sort of a technical role, whether that's a manufacturing role or an engineering role. And the way I got there was to kind of think back and realize that right from a small kid on, I was always a tinkerer. I was always taking things apart, even as a little kid. I'd take things apart, and I don't know what I was really doing back then, other than I was curious. But that certainly evolved into always wanting to make things bigger and faster and better, and that led then to bicycles, and then to snowmobiles, and snowmobiles were really where I really got the entrepreneurial bug, I think, was when I bought a snowmobile for, I think it was $20, and I worked on it for maybe one afternoon, and a few days later I sold it for several $100s. And I was just a kid. I'm pretty sure I didn't even have my driver's license yet. But that really intrigued me. And so I ended up tinkering with snowmobiles, then with cars, then with farm equipment, then industrial equipment, and now with companies. And so as I thought through that process, and I go back to Wayne's question, or Wayne and his team's question, if I wouldn't have been successful tinkering with companies, well, I probably would have continued tinkering with industrial equipment.
Okay.
And that I still enjoy that, but I like companies better. And if you look, we talk about the hedgehog overlap all the time. So if you look at one of the other maybe consequences of this thought process, was it caused me to think about what is my real hedgehog overlap. And certainly there's a passion for making things bigger, better, faster, and tinkering with things, and I still do that. And Jan still reminds me of the one toy that we got for Matt when he was a little boy, and I took it apart, and it kind of exploded because all the little tiny pieces were spring-loaded and everything, and we never did get it back to the way it should have been. But she reminds me of that all the time, or occasionally. So passion is maybe tinkering, making things bigger, better, faster. What am I best in the world at? Probably some applications of problem solving. And my guess is those would be related to economies more than companies. I think there's a lot of people that are good at problem solving for companies. I think if I'm best in the world at anything, it's probably in some types of problems with economies. And of course, we've kind of had practice with that at the IFMC. And certainly the economic engine has been the IFMC, but maybe even more particular is my network of acquaintances that I've made, and just all the opportunities that come out of that. And so that was a very thought-provoking question. I really kind of had fun with that over the last month.
I thought I knew that was going to be a good question, and I love hearing people's stories and how they got to where they are. I know you mentioned the toy that you got for Matt that you sort of ruined for him. Can you think of anything when you were a kid that you took apart that maybe upset your parents or your mom that because you couldn't get it back together, or something that she used regularly that you tinkered too much with?
No, but what I do remember very, very clearly was how clever and masterful my dad was at challenging me to always fix something or improve something that was ever increasingly more complex.
Okay.
And so he gave me, I mean, I was probably only 10 years old or thereabouts, but he gave me a V8 car engine and challenged me to take it apart, put it back together, and get it running. And I never did get it running, not that particular one at that age, but that was the kind of thing that he did. And he was always, he was always, I mean, there was just no reaction, no negative consequence to me ruining things. I mean,
Okay.
that was just kind of the price of my education. And so I didn't realize this until much more recently, but he was a master at that. He's got to be, he's one of the guys, he's head and shoulders above anybody else in my world for mentoring me. I mean, that was awesome.
Oh yeah, because we talked about that in a previous question. So
Mm-hmm.
your mentors along the way. So very cool. I like that. I think it's awesome that I like when parents give their children those opportunities, and here, figure it out. If you fail, you're gonna fail, but learn from it. So go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. So moving on to the next question. This is from Sunik with ITS team. He submitted, how do the highest level employees increase the success of the organization?
I'm wondering what highest level means. Is that highest level of value provided to customers, or highest level of maybe position in a company? But I guess that probably doesn't
Well,
really matter. Is the organization a business unit or the IFMC?
so I think where this comes from, I believe, is, we know the when you think of manufacturing, you can picture things that would look like manufacturing and assembling equipment and selling it. But there's people who are doing that. They see their leaders doing who knows what, and they're running around, they're on phone calls, they're in meetings, but they don't really know what they're doing. So maybe this is a question for the folks that don't necessarily know what those, like the people in management positions, are doing. And so how are they adding value to the organization if they're not the ones doing the engineering drawings, doing the sales calls, or doing the on the floor hands-on manufacturing?
Mm-hmm. Well, so if we start out maybe at the most zoomed out level, at the IFMC level, and we say that's the organization, I think the way to add the most value is to delight the customers enough while we're profitably advancing the vision and mission of the IFMC and the vision and mission of their organization. So if no, in a for-profit world, no organization is going to be successful if you're not satisfying your customers. If you're just satisfying them to where they're tolerating you, then it becomes a price game. But if you're delighting the customers, price is a lot less of an issue. That makes profitably advancing the vision and mission of that organization a whole lot easier. And so I guess that would be my answer. If we can, if a leader or a high level employee in an organization can delight the customers while they're profitably advancing the vision and mission of the organization, that's how you add value in the organization and you provide benefit. What does that look like to other folks in the organization? That can be confusing because it's not always real connected to the work that gets the product across a loading dock. And so I guess the way I would, if we tried to answer that question for everybody in the organization, I guess I would go back to delight your customer, and your customer might be an internal customer like your leader. Mm-hmm. And if you can satisfy your leader, and that's probably a really good starting point for anybody, a brand new person coming in the organization. If you can delight your leader, that's probably the best place to start. Then, once you master that, delight your coworkers on your team and be very helpful to them in doing their work. Then with the reseller customers, which is in many of our business units, we're selling to someone who's reselling our product, either in a bigger system or to some other customer. And then if you master that, then start thinking about the end user. And the folks that understand the end user's experience with our product, that is really valuable, because that's what we need to design the product for, is that end user. So at the end of the day, all of us have multiple customers, if you will. And so when I say delight the customers, that's not a real black and white, clean recipe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at oh, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is, in a perfect world, if we go all the way back to the question of how does someone help their organization, in the perfect world, the total impact that they have on the vision and mission of the organization should be proportional to their total compensation that they're making. So that, in a perfect world, that's all a nice system. I got to tell you though, Jackie, the world ain't perfect.
We're very painfully aware of that. I think every one of us is. So, and you brought up the mission vision, and that's what I was going to say is, when you say delight the customer, your customer is not necessarily black and white. It's not always the end user. It could be your leader. It could be whoever it might be. But that's built into the mission and vision statements of the IFMC as stakeholder. So it's not just about the customer. It's about all of the other stakeholders too. So I often think about it that way instead of just the customer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think we have time for one more question. So this question is also from Sunik. What is something that you want to change about the IFMC?
Well, I would like to increase the positive impact of the IFMC vision even more than it is today. And so I'm pleased with the positive impact that we're making with the IFMC vision, but we could do more. And if you look at how economic development professionals strive to attract what they call gazelle organizations, if we strive to create more gazelle results with our business units, I think that's really the best opportunity we have to accomplish that, and to have a bigger positive impact of the IFMC vision. A gazelle organization, there are several definitions for it, but in economic gardening, the definition that's generally accepted is a company that has a minimum of $1 million in sales revenue and has 4 consecutive years of compounded annual sales growth of over 20%. And in the history of the IFMC, if we look at the IFMC in total, so the collection of all the business units, we've done that 14 different times over our history. 2020 was the last year or the most recent time we achieved that at the IFMC level. The individual business units, of course, they're achieving that much more frequently, but that varies. And at least since 2020, we haven't had enough of them achieving that to bring the average up for the whole IFMC. But I think I connect that pretty quickly right back to improving the impact, the positive impact of the IFMC vision.
So if you could snap your fingers or wave a magic wand or whatever your form of changing something would be, and tomorrow something would be different, that's what it would be, is that you would increase the positive impact of the IFMC?
Yep.
Yep. Nice. All right. I think we're out of time. We are, but I just looked at the next question, and as long as we stick with this one, it's another one that I'm going to be very interested in. So has to do with ventures that maybe went awry in your history. So we will leave it at that, but thank you for your time today. The next Equipped Live will be on April 21st. As typical, I will send an email out to everybody for that one. And these are always able to be viewed on the ESI's YouTube channel within 24 to 36 hours after the actual event. So Greg, any final words?
In the spirit of St. Patrick's Day, sláinte.
All right. Thank you so much. We will see everybody soon.